In his farewell address, George Washington addresses his American citizens as his presidential term ends over the dangers of political parties and foreign affairs. Washington begins with reminding his audience of America's fundamental values, continuing with warning citizens on the dangers brought by participating in foreign affairs and political parties, and ending with a sentimental goodbye and best wishes. George Washington effectively asserts to his audience of the dangers of participating in political parties and foreign affairs by including a juxtaposition between long parallel syntax and short declarative syntax, use of rhetorical devices such as personification and ethos, and maintaining a subjective and harsh diction, enforcing his urgently passionate tone. Before continuing to analyze the rest of his speech, let's listen to it.
Friends and fellow citizens, the period for a new election of a citizen to administer the executive government of the United States being not far distant, and the time actually arrived when your thoughts must be employed in designating the person who is to be clothed with that important trust, it appears to me proper, especially as it may conduce to a more distinct expression of the public voice, that I should now apprise you of the resolution I have formed to decline being considered among the number of those out of whom a choice is to be made. Here perhaps I ought to stop. But a solicitude for your welfare, which cannot end but with my life, and the apprehension of danger natural to that solicitude, urge me, on an occasion like the present, to offer to your solemn contemplation, and to recommend to your frequent review, some sentiments which are the result of much reflection, of no inconsiderable observation, and which appear to me all important to the permanency of your felicity as a people. The unity of government, which constitutes you one people, is also now dear to you. It is justly so, for it is a main pillar in the edifice of your real independence, the support of your tranquillity at home, your peace abroad, of your safety, of your prosperity, of that very liberty which you so highly prize. But as it is easy to foresee that from different causes and from different quarters much pains will be taken, many artifices employed, to weaken in your minds the conviction of this truth, as this is the point in your political fortress against which the batteries of internal and external enemies will be most constantly and actively, though often covertly and insidiously, directed, it is of infinite moment that you should properly estimate the immense value of your national union to your collective and individual happiness, that you should cherish a cordial, habitual, and immovable attachment to it, accustoming yourselves to think and speak of it as of the palladium of your political safety and prosperity, watching for its preservation with jealous anxiety, discountenancing whatever may suggest even a suspicion that it can in any event be abandoned, and indignantly frowning upon the first dawning of every attempt to alienate any portion of our country from the rest, or to enfeeble the sacred ties which now link together the various parts. It is important, likewise, that the habits of thinking in a free country should inspire caution in those entrusted with its administration, to confine themselves within their respective constitutional spheres, avoiding in the exercise of the powers of one department to encroach upon another. The spirit of encroachment tends to consolidate the powers of all the departments in one, and thus to create, whatever the form of government, a real despotism. A just estimate of that love of power and proneness to abuse it, which predominates in the human heart, is sufficient to satisfy us of the truth of this position. the necessity of reciprocal checks and the exercise of political power by dividing and distributing it into different depositories, and constituting each the guardian of the public weal against invasions by the others, has been evinced by experiments ancient and modern, some of them in our country and under our own eyes. To preserve them must be as necessary as to institute them. If, in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation, for though this in one instance may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. Observe good faith and justice towards all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Antipathy in one nation against another disposes each more readily to offer insult and injury, to lay hold of slight causes of umbrage, and to be haughty and intractable when accidental or trifling occasions of dispute occur. So likewise, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest. Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republican government. Our detached and distant situation invites and enables us to pursue a different course, if we remain one people under an efficient government. In offering to you, my countrymen, these counsels of an old and affectionate friend, I dare not hope they will make the strong and lasting impression I could wish, that they will control the usual current of the passions, or prevent our nation from running the course which has hitherto marked the destiny of nations.
Now that we have heard the speech, let's continue to analyze its effectiveness. Washington effectively used varied syntax to grab and keep the reader's attention on the importance of staying away from foreign affairs and political parties and remembering American values. In lines 20 through 24, which read as, "It is justly so, for it is a main pillar in the edifice of your real independence, the support of your tranquillity at home, your peace abroad, of your safety, of your prosperity, of that very liberty which you so highly prize." Washington chooses to use long parallel syntax as opposed to a shorter sentence. This way, he drills into his readers the importance of maintaining those core American beliefs of liberty, prosperity, and safety. This forces the reader to remember those ideals throughout the speech, tying them together, understanding the importance of staying away from foreign affairs and political parties. In contrast, Washington juxtaposes his long parallel syntax with short declarative sentences, such as in line 59, "To preserve them must be as necessary as to institute them." Washington chooses to use this phrase in a shortened version as opposed to a longer sentence. He does so to allow the reader to better remember this short sentence in order to remind themselves of the importance of maintaining and preserving the American laws and core beliefs by which the nation has been brought upon. Furthermore, Washington uses rhetorical devices such as personification and ethos to aid his claims. In lines 70-71, stating, "Antipathy in one nation against another disposes each other more readily to offer insult and injury, to lay hold of slight causes of umbrage, and to be haughty and intractable when accidental or trifling occasions of dispute occur. This form of personification allows the reader to have empathy, in a sense, for a nation and build a connection, hitting on their beliefs of patriotism and nationalism. This way, George Washington is able to allow the reader to build a sense of comfort around their own nation to support his claim. George Washington also uses ethos throughout his speech, such as in lines 11 through 19, but a solitude for your welfare, which cannot end but with my life, and the apprehension of danger natural to that solitude, urge me, on an occasion like the present, to offer to your solemn contemplation, and to recommend to your frequent review, some sentiments, which are the result of much reflection, of no inconsiderable observation, and which appear at me all important to your permanency of your felicity as a people. In these lines, George Washington tells the reader how much he cares and values the importance of the citizens of the United States in his nation, which allows the reader to have this sense of familiarity with the author and his purpose, enforced by the fact that George Washington was the founding father of our nation, therefore instilling and enforcing that we should believe and be very cautious of what his worries are and what his wishes are for the future of our nation. Finally, Washington also effectively uses subjective and harsh diction to enforce his urgently passionate tone. Washington chooses to use the words encroach as when speaking of nations rather than the word intrude, because encroach holds the connotation of being a pest and deep bother. This word best enforces Washington's ideals of how negative and dangerous foreign affairs could truly be to the nation, causing devastation, such as participating in wars or being an ally to one specific nation and owing loyalty to them. Similarly, Washington also opts to use the words insidious wiles as opposed to danger to enforce his harsh diction, and he chooses these words because insidious wile holds a connotation of evil, whereas danger is a simple caution or worry of sorts. This strengthens Washington's position that by no means should Americans participate in foreign affairs which could lead into the ending and devastation of our country. In a time where America has participated in devastating wars such as World War II, the Vietnam War, and the Iraq War, and currently where political parties have divided our nation, George Washington's farewell address reminds us what it means to be American citizens, to leave our differences aside, and to think about the future of our nation and our well being, because that's what America stands for.